Hello, and welcome to episode 2 of Identicast, a podcast where we talk about all things identity security. And today I have the pleasure of chatting with Nauman Mustafa, who is the Chief Strategy Officer and VP of Solutions Engineering for Britive. Welcome, Nauman.
Thanks, Nabil. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, as we all know, Britive is one of the leaders in the cloud PAM space. But for all of our listeners, let's start with what is cloud PAM? Is it PAM for the cloud, or is it PAM for all delivered in the cloud?
Yeah, great question to start with, Nabil. So, Cloud PAM, the way Britive sees it, is absolutely a new category that's very different, not a better version of the old. And the whole philosophy behind CPAM category is founders of Britive, which is Art and Samir, realizing that world is shifting to a cloud first model where things are drastically different. Everything is services based. Everything is as an infrastructure, as a resource. It's a distributed environment. Things are moving from a monolith to a microservice architecture. So how can we build a privileged access management solution which is born in the cloud, built for the cloud, leveraging the native constructs, IAM constructs that each cloud provider provides, and provides this unification across all the environments and give you a granular privileged access policy management solution that is built for modern day to secure against modern day threats. So this CPAM category that is forming is solving very modern problems that enterprises are facing, specifically the ones who are moving into a data center to a multi-cloud hybrid world. Uh, it's very different than the PAM in the cloud or
Mhm.
legacy approaches of okay, used to 20 years of X, Y, and Z, which has worked beautifully well for me in the data center and on-prem world.
Mhm.
Now, just by lifting and shifting and calling it PAM for the cloud is not same as CPAM, because CPAM is really understanding the features and capabilities of the cloud and solving the modern problems, which I will cover later on. And that's why I think sometimes people call it cloud native versus cloud naive, even though it's just one letter that's different.
Right.
Having that smarts of really understanding and being cloud native and cloud smart is what CPAM category is all about.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with you, and thank you for that explanation. So, let's talk about this privilege access domain in itself, right? And as you alluded to, it's growing at this accelerated pace, predominantly because of that shift to cloud. Cloud ephemeral in nature. People are, launching services. They're going up and down. Discovery becomes a problem, and then ensuring people have the right access, privilege access. But as we've seen in recent years, right, whether it's driven by efforts to lower, cyber insurance premiums, or implement least privilege, whatever your regulatory or security controls are, right? This hybrid enterprise is the challenge that we're seeing. You know, On-prem, completely agree with you. I think there's a lot of people that have done it in a, albeit in a legacy approach, but re-architecting and solving for that while addressing the cloud, a multi-cloud, as you mentioned, is that's much more important to me, right? So, what are some of the challenges that you're seeing in order to secure privilege access in the cloud?
Great question. And I will answer it in such a way where people who are not very much familiar with the legacy would also understand this, right? But what is happening is identity and access in general is becoming a key pillar of a cybersecurity posture. Early on, it was not that way. It was used to be just an operational IT infrastructure part. But what is happening is, people talk about zero trust security posture, and in general, when they talk about zero trust, they might mean zero trust network access, which is called GTNA, and that's where all the SASE players, Zscalers of the world, they come. But zero trust is actually an umbrella term which also relates to a zero trust authorization, zero trust authentication, right? Because it's now a critical part of a cybersecurity posture. And why? So if you look at the modern day threats, right, and maybe just go to ChatGPT and type, give me all the security threats or breaches that have happened because of access and identity, and you will
Yep.
see a plethora of breaches, right? MGM, Capital One, experience, you name it. And what's happening is the attackers or cyber criminals, they're finding it easier to steal the credentials and passwords, to then data exfiltrate the enterprises, the customer sensitive information, the intellectual property, the source code. It results into a heavy financial burden for enterprises, reputational damage. It's not something that you can overlook now, right? And that's why I think there's a famous saying that say hackers don't break in, they simply log in. Why? Because they
Yep.
just steal the password. And in the modern day, right, where data is your gold, right? Data is actually the gold. So yeah, it's equivalent to robbing a Fortox, right? So it's important to understand that identity and access is becoming a critical part of cybersecurity posture, zero trust authorization posture. Second thing that you have to understand that static access and over provisioned access, right? And a lot of time people talk about privileged access management and just in time. It's not a new term, right? But
Right.
what the way they implement things is still they rely on static access, right? And many times, either for convenience or for legacy reasons, they are just over provisioned. And when you provide static access to either a human user or a non-human, like service accounts, for instance, or RPA, runbook process automation tools, you're
Hmm.
actually giving the keys to your enterprise to cyber criminals, right? So even a single credentials that will get breached, and you have seen many examples in the recent past where support, customer support, or any other credentials that get stolen give the ability for cyber attackers to breach. So it's very important to understand that the modern enterprises, the way they are looking for is making sure that first of all they don't rely on just credentials because they are going to get stolen. So they have a defense in depth strategy. And second is they want to make sure that there is no static access or over provisioned access. Right. So you need to give access to critical resources only when it's needed and to only when it's what's needed for. Other than that, it gets revoked. It's not available. So even if you get breached, your credentials get breached, you don't have any. You're not risking any of your crown jewels within your enterprise. The second thing that is happening that enterprises are looking for is okay. As I move from my and I discussed this before, but from on-prem to a cloud model, where everything is a resource, a service, right?
Yep.
So you have Lambda talking to your S3 buckets. You have users trying to access, EC2 instances and your Kubernetes clusters and databases in the cloud like Snowflake and Salesforce access. So you really need to leverage your API first approach to make sure that you're providing this dynamic just-in-time privilege access as opposed to having a user group and credential. And you can write workflow orchestration all day long to provide user to the group and take out the user from the group. Still, that service account has static over provisioned privileges, right? So, but that's basically is the shift that is happening where customers and enterprises are looking to modernize their cybersecurity posture. They want to avoid just relying on credentials. Obviously, SSO and MFA exist. IDPs are doing a great job, but that's not enough, right? Having that zero trust authorization and decoupling authentication from authorization and providing that dynamic just-in-time access is critical.
No, 100%. And it's funny you mentioned zero trust. I've always looked at this as that umbrella framework, but when it comes to privilege, I've always looked at it as zero standing privilege, which is what you kind of talked about, right? Eliminate persistent access, make it just in time, and make sure that it's not over permissioned. To your point, but let's get into the specifics of cloud, right? I think you touched on infrastructure as a service, and I think you also talked about SaaS applications. So you've got IaaS, SaaS, and PaaS. Um, you know, and a lot of organizations, from a security perspective, understand the need to eliminate this persistent access and understand that they would like to get to a just-in-time role based versus identity based. But what is the challenge? Like, why are they not solving for that today? Why are they? Let me take that back. Solutions are there. Why are they not, as part of shared responsibility, going ahead and implementing these solutions? Is it they feel that it's very similar to a legacy approach, that it's going to be cumbersome? Do you have any thoughts on that? I mean, this seems pretty obvious to me, right? You look at the Okta hack. It was a customer service individual representative that had persistent access. All the hacker had to do was, to your point, steal their password. They had persistent admin access as part of their job, their function as a customer rep. And once you broke into that person's account, you got access to everything they had access to. But so why are organizations not jumping on this and trying to secure it?
Yeah, great question. I think it's like with anything else, it's about maturity, it's about awareness, it's about education. Cloud is still very new for many enterprises. There are teams that we work with around cloud security. There are DevOps architects, obviously cloud security people, and IEM teams. So they all are in a different maturity levels in terms of their understanding of the cloud, right? So what I'm seeing is there is this continuous awareness that is needed, and people who are actually seeing this problem and the pain in front of their eyes. For example, securing access to GitHub, securing access to a
Yeah,
Snowflake database. Many of these new use cases that are coming up, especially around machine learning and AI, right? Where now
yep,
you have data from everywhere, right? And then your data scientists are using that data to train the models, right? It's becoming more and more critical, and obviously these breaches that are happening around us is becoming that, making that urgency or bringing that urgency to adopt a modern approach. Because as I said earlier, right, if you just talk about just in time and privileged access management, people already have well trusted vendors out there who have been doing this for 20 plus years.
right,
There's a need to double click on what is the problem that customers are facing today in the cloud, and most of those legacy approaches are not able to keep up, right? And there are many reasons why. I will explain you, and I think I have a blog which our listeners can look at, where I describe the 6 characteristics of a cloud privileged access management category, right? And so one of the things is around unification. So you are in a hybrid multi-cloud world. That's a new normal, right? You will have services, you have servers, you have database, you have partners. Your data center could be a multi-cloud hybrid world. So how can you unify this dynamic privileged access management framework across all the different environments in a way where you're not created a fragmented IAM or zero trust authorization posture, but you have a unified approach that works. It makes life simple for operations team. It makes you security bulletproof, and it basically is very cost effective as well. So the unification is the first one. The second is ephemeral in nature. As you mentioned earlier, cloud is ephemeral, right? So you need to make sure that security keys and tokens that are being used to provide privileged access management, it has expiry time, right? So once you're done, it's 8 hours, 2 hours, 3 hours, those tokens and security keys are no longer relevant. And we have seen many breaches, and cyber criminals are scanning your private GitHub repos all day long looking for these
yep.
access keys.
Keys,
because,
yeah,
because as soon as they're able to get hold even one security key or token, that we saw in in several breaches like Mercedes. If you look at the Mercedes breach that happened this year, somebody was able to get access to that GitHub token because the developer pushed it out to public repo, right? And because of that, they're able to log into the internal systems and be able to data exfiltrate, and it's a huge risk, right? So it cannot be things that is a good to have. It's a must have mandatory measure that all enterprises should take. The other thing is API first approach, right? So a lot of these legacy models and tools that were built, they were not API first. They don't really understand they're actually even in the cloud. They're not true SaaS.
yep,
Having the ability to provide API first approach where developers can find it easy to check in and check out and check in permissions, make life easier for them. Because if you make life easier for developers and data scientists, they're not against security, but if it becomes time consuming, but if it becomes a roadblock, they will find a way to work around you, right? So what is most important is to make it developer friendly, data scientist friendly, where whatever tools they're using, whether using Python, Terraform, CI/CD pipelines, whatever they may be, without actually having to go through hoops, they're able to instantly check out and check in permissions to radically reduce the attack surface. So that's some of the key parameters that defines what the world is seeing in terms of cloud privilege access management in the developers world.
And I think you hit on something that I want to double click on, right? Because first of all, I completely agree with you. If you want to move at the speed of business, you gotta make this frictionless for the end user. And what you're describing is what I've seen organizations sort of um, they don't want security. They want the developers to continue to build, and they see security as a blocker, right? And part of this, I believe, is also because historically, identity and access management solutions have been hard to implement, takes a long time. And if someone asked the IAM team to help secure privileged credentials for cloud assets, I mean, they would expect it to be a long time before they are delivered any kind of solution, right? So just to build on that, does it make more sense to appeal to the infrastructure, the DevOps teams with this problem, bringing the awareness to them, and getting a purpose built solution that addresses their needs rather than trying to go to the IAM team? Because what I've seen is they'll go to the IAM team, the PAM team, security team, and the PAM team will turn around and say, "I've got X, Y, and Z solution already implemented. Let's integrate with that." But that's a legacy approach, right? But to your points, not looking at APIs, not looking at services, Kubernetes, Docker, various containerized services in the cloud. So would the organizations be better off, like, getting a solution for the infrastructure team? I mean, should that be who we're pandering to bring awareness and helping them solve this problem?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I think it's as with technology, right? It's always the humans, right? It's always the humans. It's always the comfort zone. What we see in our customer base, you cannot leave the IAM team behind, right? So IAM team is a critical part of the buying process, but they need to be enlightened in terms of what problems the cloud architects, cloud security, DevOps teams are facing, because they're not there to put roadblocks against you. They want to help you, right? It's just that they're not close to the problems that developers and data centers are seeing every single day. And in our case, you're right. The most of the time, the light bulb clicks with the cloud security and DevOps teams, because the ones which basically their job are on the line if something gets breached.
Correct.
IAM team that owns the responsibility and even the budget sometimes. So I would say that bringing that enlightenment is critical. At Britive, being the CPAM category,
Building the bridge you're talking about.
be the
Yep.
bridge. So at Britive, being that CPAM leader, we are coming out with a certification track and a fast track certification track for even IAM people, because we want to ensure that they understand the problems of today and how and why the legacy tooling does not help solve that problem, right? So once they understand, I'm sure that humans, they like to solve problems, right? But you need to enlighten them, to bring them out of the comfort zone, to tell them that how it's important to think in a different way, how static access is almost like putting your keys under a mat, right?
Yep.
And security does not work, right? So it will get stolen. So as a part of being that CPM leader, we are working with all three teams. Yes, cloud security, DevOps are basically the immediate users of our product, but we are making sure that we are bringing IEM along with us to ensure that they understand the problems. Because at the end of the day, they need to be a part of the overall solution that we are trying to give to the industry.
No, that's a great response, and I completely agree. I think there needs to be more or continued education, awareness, and I think the certification track makes a lot of sense. Let's stay on cloud for a bit, and we've talked on about infrastructure and the problem statements there. Um, I think there's another opportunity here to help organizations, secure their credentials in their IAM environments as well, right? So I talked about the Okta breach. That was an Okta IDP that was not secured. Similarly, throughout my uh, uh, engagement with a lot of customers, I've also found that all of these IAM tools themselves aren't secure it with their privilege access. There's IGA tools that people log in with admin access. No one's going through a check in, check out process. Similarly, they do this with every IDaaS solution out there. People just have persistent access and they log in, right? This seems like an easy problem to solve, but the awareness isn't there, right? And I think IAM teams sort of have this privilege access and no one's highlighting that they've got too much permissions as well, right?
Absolutely.
Uh,
And I think we basically eat our own dog food, right? So we have our head of security, Harry Vaughan, right? He is Okta administrator, but he is at, maybe 23 hours out of 24 hours in a day. He's a normal user, public user with no access to Okta, right? So, and when he needs to get privileged access to Okta, he would go to Britive and he will check out the permissions that he needs it for the things he need it for. And after that 1 hour, it gets completely removed.
yep.
That basically is a great example of, the even the IAM tool itself, right? They need to be in this zero trust authorization posture, right?
Right.
Where, okay, if I am an admin, does not mean that I have 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. I have that over privileged access, which again is going to be a ticking time bomb, right, for the enterprise. So we are 100% all the enterprises needs to adopt that. We are using it in our own way. Obviously, would love to tell customers how we are defining that posture to provide them the best practices around there. Same thing true for Snowflake, right? There are Snowflake administrators who need access to a sensitive information that may be stored in different tables.
Yep.
Same thing with Databricks, Cloudera, right? Especially with AI and all these machine learning UI use cases being developed aggressively, more and more critical information is being fed into those databases. It could be even a vector database which people are using for their retrieval augmentation generation, right? RAG, which is a part of a Gen AI capability a lot of enterprises are using. The key point here is that if you are an administrator or if you have access to critical data, right, you should not have access, standing access or over provisioned access, which is static and it's 24 hours a day or 365 days a year. So you can use platforms like Britive to provide just in time access to only the tables that you need, right? Same thing true for your GitHub access, your Kubernetes clusters, right? It goes all day long. So I think when we talk about CPAM category and when we talk about unification, it's just not about unification of multi-cloud hybrid environment, which includes all the cloud providers and your Kubernetes clusters or even on-prem, but it also means that different application like SaaS services, like a Salesforce, GitHub,
Yeah.
right, databases, that policy framework that you're building should be allowing you to do privileged access just in time, ephemeral in nature, to all those
All those
different
assets. Yeah.
things as well.
Yeah. No, this was a great conversation. So, a couple of things, right? Obviously, a lot of the, and I shouldn't even call them legacy because a lot of those solutions are also trying to address cloud problems. But the architecture and the maturity, I should say, of some of those solutions have gone to, um, uh, ingesting analytics from risk engines, trying to give a much better end user experience. Hey, if you're Nabil, if you're at home, we know your IP, we know your machine is clean. There's no threats or malware on it. I'm not going to prompt you with a multi-factor because I know I've already done the validation through a risk engine. I'm going to let you in. Um, do you see that also feature parity coming out of Britive to push that frictionless experience for the end users as well?
Absolutely. So I think the two things that Bratiff has done amazingly well. The first is basically the fact that it's API first platform. It's integrating with all of the other players in this identity and access ecosystem. So all the IGA players, the IDP players with Okta and Ping and Azure. Zilla is a good IGA upcoming vendor that we integrate with nicely. All the ITSM tools like ServiceNow and the data lakes as well, for example, Splunk and others. and even the Wiz and Orcas of the world, which is basically your CNAP, right? So if you look at the overall stack or our identity and access management, we either basically push our data, because obviously being that governance engine, being that privileged access management solution for customers, we are seeing everything in Brightif in terms of who logged in, what did they do, when they checked in, when they checked out. So it's amazing information in terms of compliance and audit that we can then feed to either data lakes or to the other IG solutions or to other ITSM solutions. The other thing that we are also doing is in terms of our API access, right? We are also trying to work with the different type of GitHub and CI/CD pipelines as well, so that when developers are trying to do things as part of the software development lifecycle, right? They are incorporating that programmatic check-in and check-out through Brightif, so that they don't have to have a manual intervention. And because in a especially in a non-human accounts level, there is no SSO and MFA, right? So it's a code talking to a code. So
Right.
having that programmatic way of checking out the permission, even for a non-human user, is a very strong capability and a powerful capability that will reduce your tech service considerably well. So we are looking into this. Even within the product, we are trying to bring this anomaly detection,
Hmm.
right? As you said, right? If you are coming from a certain IP address, if you are coming within a certain uh, time of the day, right? And if you look like a normal profile to us, for some of the less sensitive accounts, we can just give you
Let you in.
permissions
Yep.
without human approvals. But as if you have more sensitive information, you are doing a change window of a critical, bug release or a patch update to a critical system that goes to thousands of users, right? You may have a human intervention, but your manager don't need to wait or wake up or use their family time to approve you. You can basically do it on a weekday, on a Friday, and they will approve you for that Sunday change window, right? So all these capabilities and bells and whistles and intelligence is already part of the Brightif platform. It makes life easier for operations team to implement, and it's a SaaS platform. It gets deployed within hours, right? That's the beauty of it. It's not a lift and shift of what you build in on-prem and you just say, okay, it's now in the cloud, right? It's a true SaaS platform, right? Built on cloud provider. If you When people become a customer, they get deployed as a tenant within our SaaS service in hours, and all you have to do then just onboard your AWS, Azure, GCP, on-prem assets, right, through our Access Broker product, and then you are up and running with your creating your profiles and implementing just-in-time dynamic ephemeral access in minutes, right?
Yep.
So the time to value is amazing. Cost is like fraction of cost for if compared with the legacy players, right? Because everything is built lightweight and it's modern in terms of the implementation.
Doesn't have the heavy footprint and
Heavy footprint, so it's
maintenance
it's
of all the other
amazing.
components.
And absolutely, and it's
Yep.
amazing. And I talk to many CISOs, many CTOs. I'm sure you must be talking to many of them as well. The value proposition is so clear. Everybody gets it. It's just a matter of that awareness and evangelism
Agreed.
get going. And then once you have success stories coming out, it will be a no-brainer and a must-have as part of a zero trust authorization
And
strategy.
hopefully this podcast will provide more content, more enablement, more awareness to a lot of folks out there. Look, I'm a big fan. I think in a world of platform based identity solutions, I'm a big fan of purpose built, best of breed solutions as well. So looking forward to hearing more out of Brightive. Last, before we sign off, your thoughts on ID based versus role based, right? I think to eliminate all that persistent access, in my opinion, eliminate ID based, elevate an existing identity, give them the roles and more of a role based elevation model than an ID based. Would you agree, or do you have a different opinion?
100%. Identity is your new security parameter, right? So uh, identifying, use your IDPs all day long. Right? They are doing a good job in whatever they do. Use your ping, use your Oktas of the world,
Yep.
and their SSO MFA going. But then make sure that they don't have static access, they don't have over provisioned access. Give them just in time dynamic access, leveraging the best of breed of cloud capabilities that they provide. Be cloud native, because when you become cloud native, your operations will be simple, your developers will be happy, right? And you will be able to integrate with all the different tools, providing you the knowledge that you need for compliance, for audit, for anomaly detection, for being proactive. The whole game is about being proactive. And I think you mentioned about early on. You mentioned about insurance premiums and compliance versus least privilege. If you focus on doing the right things right, things rest of the things which are symptoms, like oh, your insurance premiums and compliance are symptoms. But if you do the right things right, focus on cyber prevention and do it right security posture, all these things will automatically take care of itself.
Yep. And you're starting to see cyber insurance premiums. They're looking for evidence now. So it's not just a checkbox of do you have a PAM product? Now I want evidence to ensure you're, applying controls to mitigate whatever risk is out there too. So
Absolutely,
great
100%.
conversation, Nauman. Thank you as always, and looking forward to hearing more from Britive over the coming days. Thank you.
Thanks, Nabil. And I'm available on LinkedIn. My email is noman.mustafa@bradiv.com. And I'm sure that I will be connecting to several IAM specialists, cloud architects, DevOps through the certification program we're launching and the immersion day we're launching. So very excited to be here in this category and working together to do this evangelism, build this category, and help customers with reducing their tech surface.
Absolutely. Thank you, Nauman.
Thanks. Take care.